ICT फाउन्डेसन नेपाल प्रस्तुत गर्दछ Huawei MNC Digital Nepal Conclave 2023.
Thank you and good afternoon to all of you. I think post-lunch sessions are not that populated, but it's good to see all of you here and being so patiently listening to the forum and to all the coordination and networking which is happening outside. So great. This is my first trip to India, and I'm so happy to see the kind of engagement and thought process coming and getting shared here. I did not understand the whole piece because maybe the language was not clear to me but I learned maybe next few rounds I'll be able to make it up. Now we are talking about Aadhaar, how it is basically changing the country's ecosystem. We think of Aadhaar or identity as a single layer, saying that it would do X process, right? Which is that the way you have NID, we have Aadhaar, same structure. So I think 10 years back when the same was getting conceptualized, as Indians, we did not know what it would do, right? We did not know, okay? And along the journey, we learned what it could do and why it could do, and maybe the theory and the structure is already available in the market. It'll be useful for you to have a view on what is possible if you were to look at it. We will also capture things beyond that, just not Aadhaar, but the other frameworks which are coming in India from a payment perspective, from an identity perspective, or from a consent architecture perspective. Because, for example, you can share your customer data, your customers can share their data with any entity based on consent. So it's very different level of innovation happens in the market. A quick introduction about our firm. We work only in the digital finance business, which is fintech and digital finance. Fintech business is very large in India, so there is a method and methodology behind that, but very large ecosystem there. And we work across, so in terms of building banks, building fintechs, working closely with governments to build their architecture. We have done a lot of work in this segment. And of course, in terms of work, we do advisory. I will not waste time here. But generally, if you think from a process plan, any activity, and even the regulatory framework, we can work across. So that's the strength which we have, and we work across large banks, small banks, government, and all of that. Now, I'll talk a bit about the multiple layers which exist in the country. First is the identity layer, which is the Aadhaar layer, as we speak about, which is similar as your NID. Now, that identity layer is also split into two parts. Presenceless and paperless. Now, when I say presenceless and paperless, you think about it, when we in India, we have to open accounts. We actually can open accounts sitting at home, and we do it in 5 minutes. Actually, it is done in 5 minutes regularly. So much so, that's baseline in the country that you can open accounts in 5 minutes sitting at home. And when I say click of a button, I actually click of a button. It happens there and there. We obviously have additional frameworks coming up, which is video KYC and all of that, which also you have in the country. But structure-wise, identity layer is sufficient. Second, that same Aadhaar authentication can be used in multiple ways. For example, you can use on a device for Aadhaar plus thumb, you can actually do debits and credits. So you have micro ATMs in the country. I myself implemented our ATM in India, the first ATM in the world, where actually somebody could enter there, put the Aadhaar number, put thumb, and leave. Aadhaar is permanent, and thumb hopefully is permanent if it's not cut away, right? So you don't have the pin change, and also Aadhaar becomes the card, and thumb becomes a pin, right? So that's how it is structured. So it works beautifully. In terms of cashless layer, I think we have processes like a UPI, or not too many guys know about AEPS, Aadhaar Enabled Payment System. We'll talk about that because we think about UPI all the time, if you may have heard about, but AEPS is what inclusion is, right? For example, if you go to villages in India, they will not know about UPI, but they will know about AEPS. You put your Aadhaar number, put your thumb, and take the money or deposit the money. So simple. And the amount of transactions out there is not small, brilliantly large, I mean fairly large. Consent architecture. I can share my data with anyone. Nobody owns my data. So, for example, banking community will believe that their data belongs to them. I think the government came with the idea that data belongs to the citizen, and therefore citizen can share data with anyone based on the consent architecture. For that, they've created a consent layer, very, very strong. Then we comes to tax layer, another framework, right? For example, if I were to share my data on GST with any entity, I actually can share it in seconds. And it happened yesterday, or day before yesterday. I was actually leaving office, and my team came saying that data has to be shared with another entity for some purposes. All they did was take my OTP and the entire data got shared with the entity, and there was a reason for it, why we wanted to share. We were looking at credit assessment of the company, and all we needed to do is that, and based on the data counterparty, all the details are made available. So yeah, that's a critical there. And you even have e-invoicing, which means that every transaction is sent to the counterparty. That is registered through a government API, and that API actually can help you ensuring that it's authenticated transaction, and both sides know the transaction well. Now, when you do all of that, you can do inclusion, which is Aadhaar-enabled payment system, UPI, all of that, right? RuPay card, for example, the cards were very expensive. Debit cards were very expensive in the country. They've come down literally to a zero pricing, and which helps the customers. And of course, because the volumes of transactions are much higher, you over a period of time, you actually can recover the pricing as well. Innovation side, there's a thing, something called, which is getting built right now, which is in the current progress, ONDC. Now, what it means that today you have a limited set of apps on which you can buy products. In ONDC framework, literally you can go in any app and buy any product from any provider. Similarly, if you're a small shop, you can be on any app and you can be discovered by the citizen in any other place. So we'll talk about that. There's an open credit network, which means that the way you have an NPC or a payment network, I don't know why in the world there's no credit network. We don't build credit network because we copy maybe America or Europe. But India or maybe Nepal needs a credit network, which is independent. Why only payments need all innovation and credit has to be done individually? So that's something which they are building. Similarly, from a simplification perspective, we'll talk about later maybe, but so much of stuff can be simplified. Now, when we look at the India stack, it can be segregated to multiple layers. First, as I said, is presence list there. You can go anywhere with your Aadhaar and mobile Aadhaar, and you can be identified anywhere you go. Digitally, physically, you can be identified anywhere, any point of time. Second is paperless layer. So for example, you want to get validated, you want to get authenticated. Your data is available in the ecosystem in such a way that you can authenticate yourself any point of time. So much so that during COVID, they had this Arogya Setu app. I would never carry any paper. We will authenticate and show it to them real time. So that's so much of the usage of it. So paperless layer is what ensures that the documents and data can be stored. So between these two, you actually can do all the transactions in the country. And just to look at the sheer data, every Indian has been authenticated 70 times till now, 70 times. So it's not Aadhaar is just getting used for a physical paper and all that. It is digitally used 70 times over the last few, and of course, it has been accelerating over a period of time. Then we comes to cashless layer, which is IMPS, APS, APB, and UPI. APB is a great story, we'll talk about it. What they've done is, every bank account is linked to Aadhaar, which is equal to NID. Every bank account is linked to Aadhaar. Now, whenever any money has to be paid to the citizen of India for whatever reason, inclusion, all they do is to link it to that, send it to that Aadhaar, and Aadhaar is automatically linked to the account, and money goes. So there is no pilferage, no corruption, nothing is possible, because it's direct to the customer, and the framework's already built. The usage is amazingly high. Also, in terms of UPI, the scale is increasing, and AEP, as I spoke about, the village or inclusion-focused activity, we today see almost 28,000 crores of transactions per month. Nobody even talks about AEPS in the country because it's inclusion-focused activity, but it's all over there. And then comes the current layer, which is getting built upon, which is the consent architecture, where you can share your data of any kind with anybody else. The first use cases is bank account data and mutual fund data and equity data. All of this data can be shared with a third party seamlessly. And actually, I was today demonstrating to someone that so many apps already adapted it. So for example, in Axis Bank app, which is one of the leading bank in India, I can show or add all my accounts from all other banks as well. And that I can do in seconds. I don't need to do too much. It's all authenticated properly. Now, the key point is all of this is getting done over a period of time. Nothing has happened overnight. What has happened over a period of time is, once you build this, that, you keep extending. So you launch, for example, all bill payments in India is aggregated to one structure. So earlier what used to happen is that bill payments were offered through some structure where one entity will aggregate all the billers, and then if you don't partner with that biller, you have to figure out how to search for your partner. Today, everybody is aggregated under BBPS, so any kind of aggregation of bill is done through one. So if you get one partner, you get entire ecosystem. So again, open architecture. They're also building more, I mean, I'll talk about that later as well. Now, across all of that, central force is Aadhaar. If you don't have Aadhaar in India, rest all will work pretty inefficiently. Now, if you look at, this is Aadhaar, and I'm not here to talk about architecture as such, but what they've done is they've created multiple agencies which are partnering directly with Aadhaar. And therefore, you as an entity, let's say if you're a bank, you actually become a Aadhaar user agency. You can use it and partner with few maybe so UIDAI, which is the Aadhaar agency, has to work with only 5 to 6 partners. Those 5 to 6 partners will work with hundreds and thousands of entities for offering the Aadhaar. So when you are an Aadhaar holder and you want to get authenticated anywhere through thumb or through OTP or through video KYC, all of that will be through step process. So there is not much of a load specifically on the Aadhaar ecosystem, UIDI. And usage obviously is increasing all the time. Now, business users will keep increasing. Of course, I've not brought all the use cases. When we go to the airport or want to get authenticated on my COVID, I have Arogya Setu. When people have to be paid for inclusion and government says, I'll give subsidy of crores and crores of rupees, it'll be done through a use case where the government knows the Aadhaar and it once it goes to the Aadhaar. When we travel at the airport, I actually can be authenticated based on my face because my face has been linked to the Digi Yatra app, and Digi Yatra app has been created with a Aadhaar background. I can do a GSTN network, so for example, even in GSTN, Aadhaar is linked. Financial use cases, all the kind of bill payments can be done here. And of course, even when my daughter is in class 10th, when she passed, the results were not available on any website. It was available on DigiLocker in the same moment. So all the issuance in the country on any product, for example, you go to any university, you bring all the papers there physically. You don't need to give them access to DigiLocker and all your background details will be available there. So all the users can keep coming up with time. And of course, what it does, it saves amazing amount of money. Amazing amount of money for the country and for the citizens themselves. They don't need to go through all the hustle and bustle of doing activity. And social impact is massive. I mean, from an inclusion perspective, I think there can't be a better use case than what the country has built. If you look at from a welfare scheme, all the money which is to be paid to the customer is through the same structure. When the food subsidy was given during COVID, it was on the same infrastructure. So much of money, let's say 5 lakh crores was given through it, but the corruption levels were 0 because the process is simple. It's all digital, directly to the customer account. Impact on the customer, I mean, you go anywhere, so this is a device here, small device here. You go there, you put your thumb and take the money out. Massive impact there. Payment bridge. So I think from a framework perspective, more and more use cases, but inclusion, many people think that digital will impact only the people in the city. It's completely incorrect. It has impacted more villages than actually in the cities. And the scale is massive. We are not talking about minor impact. Every Indian is touched by the framework. So you look at UPI. UPI is actually used in all the processes as of now. Now look at the number of accounts. So in India, we had account issue, which means that not enough people have opened account in India. But one shot, Jan Dhan accounts were opened and they were linked to Aadhaar. So just one shot, you could actually go open up almost 47, 48 crore accounts. I remember those days when I was a banker. On UPI case, you think about, I don't even know how to talk about this number. Almost 15 lakh crores is what in a month's time the transactions are happening. And now you may say that it happens in India, it can't happen in Nepal. It's incorrect. It is to the death proportion of the size of the country, it can be done. And it is still huge. Even if you were to divide this by 20 or 30, 40, 25, it will still be a very large number. And imagine every customer today uses same framework, so it is easy for the innovations to happen. DigiLocker, as I said, usage is massive. Every Indian is now tending to use. FASTag, for example, when we used to drive, and I think 3 to 4 years back, you cross the toll nakas, you had to stop up and queue up and make payment. I think during COVID, they made FASTag mandatory. So anybody who's driving through actually can pass through it. And we were thinking that it happens only in maybe America or Europe. It happens in India in a seamless way. And it's so cheap that we don't even know. And how do we recharge? Through UPI. So it's a link which already exists in the market. Yeah, I think Oken is this one. Maybe I'll just go back. Sorry. Yeah, we spoke about it. Let's keep moving on. Now, if you were to do a lending journey, and many of you bankers will be there, if you were to do a lending journey in India, for every step, literally, for example, borrow request for financing, basic info and KYC, you use Aadhaar here. You have bureau, an account aggregator. So bureaus are an API worth less than 10 rupees. You can get it. Account aggregator is even cheaper. With account aggregator, you can get all the data of the customer. With that, you can go ahead and do the underwriting approvals. And then you can do loan section agreement. For that, you will have to do the eNASH, which is the collection process. And then you can e-sign. Through Aadhaar e-sign, you can sign the document and proceed, and you can disburse the money. So this, again, cycle of lending has become almost like 5 to 6 minutes in India. Anybody can take credit in India in 5 to 6 minutes. At this point of time, it's improving as we progress. So every step is getting used. Whatever it is practical and usable. And this is even bigger. So in UPI, anybody could use any account, any platform. For example, you could use Amazon or Google to make debit into any account and credit anyone. I think this is the next level. What they're doing is, in India, you have Amazon or a Flipkart dominating the country. The government has come back saying that small shopkeepers are not able to sell, and they're dependent only on the policies of the large players. So what they've done is, they've come back with the architecture where, on the buyer side, any customer can come on only one app. And there's an architecture which has been created that many seller apps can come up. So any kirana small shop also can partner with just one partner and can be onboarded and seen by anybody in the country. Today, customers have, the sellers have to be on maybe Amazon, Flipkart, and 10 more platforms to be discovered, because customers are on multiple platforms. All of that is getting aggregated. And if you bring all of that together, you actually can do insurance, supply chain, any kind of banking and credit products, all of that into one structure, which is again unique and very powerful. Now, the best part is there's no template worldwide for it. So it's about innovation. You try, it may or may not work. But when we were trying to do UPI, we had the same feedback that it won't work. It has not happened in Western countries. It won't happen again in India. But I think that was the, slavery mindset that what happens in US should happen in India. Not really. I think India has moved ahead, and I'm sure it's happening all over. OKN is a lending ecosystem, and GSTN is again on the GST side. There's also a thought process coming where the regulator is actually working on cohorts on each theme. For example, they want to improve retail payments, they want to do cross-border payments. They come back and loosen the regulatory framework for some particular cases. So it's called sandboxes. It came in India almost 3 to 4 years, but has been working very, very efficiently. So India, some of the innovations are tested by the government first, by the regulator first, before it's taken to the market as such. The growth is there, and of course, because of all of that, banking and fintech has been largely positively impacted. You see the funding, all of that. If you remove India stack from that, the funding will come down to more like a 20-30%. So if all the funding of, let's say, 7 billion, 3 billion, 2 billion has happened, I think it's all on the back of India stack. Remove India stack from the country, and everything comes down by 80%. And of course, because of that, the fintech ecosystem is growing like crazy. It is growing so extensively that every now and then we end up figuring out what next has happened. So new entities, new custom, and because somebody has to build, all they need is a basic framework, and they can go ahead. And now, a thought process is, If you were to build something in India and think about, in Nepal, think about it, how do you ensure that whatever you build should be accessible to more and more through open APIs? You should be able to integrate with third-party platforms. I am not saying you should make it insecure. Absolutely not saying that. But you should make it secure, but still be willing to offer it through third-party platforms. And of course, this should all result in innovation, right? Figuring out how innovation can be supported. Can regulators participate in it? In India, Aadhaar moved because RBI, the central regulator, said that Aadhaar-based account opening is permissible, and that day they did it, the market moved completely. There should be obviously accessibility and other changes, and because of that, I believe that from a eKYC, video KYC, all of these frameworks will come up. But for that, all the innovations you are doing in multiple layers, be it payment, again, payment should be at the network level. Payment should, innovation should not be done by individual companies. It should be done at the central level. Same is the case on lending and maybe national ID and all of that. If you do it as a horizontal, anybody can build vertical based on your support. Otherwise, everybody has to build collections on their own, underwriting on their own. It's a waste of time, right? So it saves country a lot of money. So with this, I stop. And yeah, if there's any one or two questions, we'll talk to. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.